Hello, welcome back to our last lesson in terms of multiplying and dividing radicals. Now, of course, we're never done with radicals, but we've done enough problems with multiplying and dividing where you should be pretty comfortable. Now we'll just do a few kind of extra ones here to make sure you understand a few other things here. 2 times the root of 5x, right? And then we're going to square that entire thing. How would you handle that? Well, you have two items in here essentially. You have a number and you have this radical part, and you have the exponent that applies to the entire thing. So if you think back to exponents when we first talked about it, if you kind of go over to the side here, if you have something like xy squared, that was basically the exponent applies to each term separately, right? So the way that you would write that is x squared y squared. So the exponent that's sitting on the outside, when it applies to the whole thing, it goes in, kind of distributes into the whole thing. The same thing happens here. 2 gets applied, the exponent applies to the 2, and then the exponent also applies to this. So the way that you would write that is 2 squared times root 5x squared. All right? So essentially we just apply this exponent to each part separately. Now the 2 squared, you should know 2 times 2 is 4. But then when you look at this, what happens? You have a square root, and then you're immediately squaring it. So those are opposite operations, and they basically cancel. When you square a square root, you're undoing the square root, essentially. So what you have left here, don't forget about the multiplication going on, 5x. So at the end of the day, 4 times 5x is 20x, and that's the final answer. Okay? Now, what if you have 3x times a tall square root of x over y times another tall square root of 9x over y. We're going to take this one step at a time and make sure you understand every part about it. The 3x outside, you can't really do anything with him, but we have two radicals multiplied, so we want to combine them under a common radical. So the 3x just stays along for the ride, and we will make a large radical to combine everything. So we'll be multiplying this times this. So essentially what you're going to have on the inside is x over y times 9x over y. Now in the next step, we need to go ahead and start doing that. We can't cancel anything on top and bottom, so we're just going to do the multiplications on the top and on the bottom. So we will have 3x, and we'll have a big radical. Now 9 here, 9x times x is going to give you 9x squared. And on the bottom, y times y is going to give you y squared. So now we're making progress. But you see, now we have this large fraction underneath the radical. We don't really like to leave things like that. So let's break it up into a numerator and denominator. We'll go over to the next line here. So the 3x will stay there, right? And now what we'll have here is